Welcome to Care Sandwich, the podcast where we dive into the success journeys of law firm owners across the country. I'm Margarita Eberline, your host and the founder of Marketing Boss, a fractional chief marketing officer firm for law firms. On this show, we'll explore the challenges, strategies, and victories that have shaped law firms and how they wrap every interaction with care. Because we believe that caring isn't just a value, it's a strategy for success. So grab your favorite sandwich, sit back, and let's dig into a conversation filled with insight, inspiration, and of course, a lot of care. Welcome to today's episode of Care Sandwich. I am so excited to introduce la abogada, attorney, Noemi Puntier. Noemi, tell the audience about you, about your life, about your law firm.
Oh, wow. That's going to take a long time, but I'm going to make it short. First of all, thank you for having me here. We've been friends and colleagues for a long time. And I'm an immigration attorney, taking on personal injury as well. And I'm an immigrant that came here when I was very, very tiny. And now I'm living my dream, basically, standing in the gap for immigrants, whether it's fighting for their case in court, whether it's fighting for their case at USCIS, whatever it is just standing in the gap and really fulfilling that life calling that I feel I have placed in, God has placed in my life as it relates to the people that I serve.
And Noemi, why don't you tell our audience about your philosophy when it comes to running a business? Because at Care Sandwich, we talk about real stories of success in law firms where you show care, you provide value, and then you follow it up with actually proving that you care by providing an amazing, caring experience to your clients. You do it differently than a lot of the attorneys out there. I mean, there are other attorneys that have, that take this approach, but talk to us, what's different about the way you run your business?
Well, you know me personally as well, so I think you get a back row, like a backroom, exposure to really what happens not only in my life, but also in the law firm. And the reality is, I always say, Jesus is my CEO. And I know sometimes you ask me, you're like, but what does that mean, Noemi? Like, God is your CEO. And it really means, the race that I'm running has a different finish line, if I may. Mm-hmm. As business owners, we're always striving for, I want to make 8 figures. I want to make 7 figures. I want to have a staff of 10, or, there's always these goals that we set for ourselves. And for me, while I have those as well, because, I have to be truthful, I run this race with a different end in mind. And the end is, how can I glorify God in everything I do in my law firm? Because when I finish this race called life, I want to be home with Jesus. And I want to make sure that everything he's entrusted me to do, whether it's a phone call to a client, whether it's just a letter that I'm writing, everything is done with a level of excellence, because ultimately I'm like, is my posture and what I'm doing exemplifying God's character? Is he proud? If he was here, which he is always in my office, I say we're very anointed, what would he say about this conversation I'm having, or this attitude that I'm having over this type of situation? And also the level of integrity. What you see here, the truth is what you see at home. And, I like to be a person of my word, and integrity to me it's non-negotiable. So it's not just about the business, but it's actually about how do I glorify God in everything that I do? How do I show up? And it goes beyond just the clients, even my office. By the way, I have a prayer room in my office because it's in my calendar. Yeah. She was here today and I was like, I just need 20 minutes. Whether it's praying, when we moved into this location, I was like, I have this sense like the king is in the room. So every detail, from the wall, from the painting, from the couch that I purchased, the desk that I order, everything is with him in mind. Like literally everything is with him in mind. And I have a check and balance, I think, that most people perhaps don't have if they're not so grounded in the word, which is what I'm doing aligned with God's character.
That's powerful. And I can tell you, I'm gonna divide the God as my CEO in 2 areas. But first, I do want to say that the way that you run your business has been such an inspiration to me personally as a business owner. Just throwing that out there. I'll divide it up. So there's God as your CEO in the way you do your marketing, right? And God as your CEO in the way you manage your business behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And what I love and admire so much about you, and you're always, I'm gonna use the word convicting in a positive way. You're always a convicting presence for me in my life as a friend and as somebody that I work with, that it's not just about what you say you believe. It's about really, when no one's looking, how do you conduct business? Right. And you and I have shared so many stories of, things that we've done that maybe people don't know. If you could, I would love for you to share one story for the outward, God as your CEO and your marketing, and one story for the inward that you're comfortable sharing. Because I know a lot of these things are private and we don't do it to boast, right?
Right, yeah. Well, if my testimony could inspire any attorney that's afraid to be like unapologetic about Jesus on social media, like it could be done. I know some people are afraid to sort of mix business and God, and I'm just like, all of this is his. Like I've really been called to do what I'm doing. But let's talk about, let's say, on a CEO practical, area, as you mentioned. This is a perfect example. I was, I shared, first of all, she knows a lot of this story because we are very close friends.
But the audience doesn't know.
So it may seem a little juicy to you, but for example, we were in a building, really nice office for 5 years. And
I love this story.
And we were, in conversations with the landlord for many, many months, like, hey, my lease is about to be up. And, there was a lot of conversation. Do you want to go to a bigger space? Yes, we want a bigger space. That's where God is moving me. And, I trusted because I'm a woman of my word. And we sort of just kept talking back and forth. But ultimately, it wasn't the right fit. And I had to make a decision and say, well, I'm going to have to move because, I'm a lawyer. Like, we read contracts. I'm in a contract, finally the top person in this building said to, she was kind of like trying to entice me, right? And give me all these options. And I made a decision based on the character of the people that are working for her and how they treated the situation. And I prayed over whether I should stay, give them a while longer, move out. And, I take everything to Jesus. And I heard from the Lord, it says, you have to sow in good soil. Mm-hmm. And I was like, God, but what does that mean? Good soil? Like, and this is...
And just to expand, when you say you take everything to Jesus, it can be a moment of pause and prayer. It could be several days of pausing and thinking about things. So I just wanted to expand on that.
Yes.
And then you got that message.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm very intentional and very clear with God as to what I'm seeking. Mm-hmm. And then you have to take out time to hear, because a lot of people say, but how do you hear from God? And it's like, I'm like, it's really simple, really. You start paying attention to what you're reading in the Bible. You start paying attention to your thoughts as they come in the middle of the night, or just when you get this aha moment. And to me, I'm like, that's Jesus confirming or letting me know. And you just have this sense in your spirit that this is coming from God. And I heard really clear, like you have to invest in good soil. And then I'm like, but what does that mean, good soil? So I started peeling back the layers, and I'm like, why am I uncomfortable with the way this person didn't keep their word? Mm-hmm. Right? What does that mean about this company? Why am I uncomfortable the way that this woman is speaking to me and using motivating language and not sticking to the truth of the matter? And then I met with another landlord, and it was a totally different experience. And I was like, that's not such a pretty place, but the integrity and the character's there.
It matters.
And it matters. So I want to do business with this individual. So making this long story short, I get on the phone because as a woman of integrity, you have to tell this person, like, I made a decision. This is not going to move forward. And she was very upset. And she's like, well, the contract says that you're going to have a 200% increase on your rent. And I was like, well, Jesus, we don't have that kind of resources around here to pay 200% on my rent. And
what is that? Like,
right.
why am I not in commercial real estate? Like, what?
And I'm like, nobody ever exercised that clause in their lease unless like you fail to pay rent. I'm like, even through COVID, I'm like on automatic payment every month. But anyway, this was God's way of saying, I told you so. So I was, and then she's like, and I'm like, you do understand, like, we have 4 days to move out. Like, an entire law firm has been in this building for 5 years. And she's like, you either do that or you pay the 200%. And I was like, you know what? God has a plan. I said, I'm moving out in 4 days. So when I say God is my CEO and I take everything to him, it takes a level of faith and understanding and assurance that you're like, everything is going to be okay, even in the midst when it seems like nothing is going to be okay. Why? Not only was I away that weekend at a conference, that was the day we had a major like storm. Everything was shut down. And I had to move my office, my law firm of 5 years in this place.
I still remember.
Like that Saturday, I literally fly in, my staff like just put everything together. Yeah. And that Sunday is pouring. We can't even get to the office. And finally I get to the office, it stops raining. We pack everything up. And I was like, Lord, but the building we're going to, the street is closed. Like, how are we gonna get to it's gonna be impossible. Margarita, I kid you not, I'm in the light. And the cops literally opened the road, and we were able to move our stuff. So I moved my office.
Wait, like when the sea parted for Moses?
I want to say
let Noemi go.
Let her people go. And we literally just drove through, and I think within like less than 8 hours, we were set up in an office, ready to go with internet and rent free. I want to say for 6 months. So God saw my obedience in trusting him. So this is when you say, oh, but God is your CEO. Like, what does that mean? On an external level is when you make these decisions, do you make them out of fear? Do you really trust the Lord and hear from him? Because my obedience gave fruit to, financially 6 months of that. I did not know this was going to happen, but because I was pushed out, then the new landlord was like, I can just have you here for 3 months. And I'm thinking, I'm going to pay rent. So the first month I'm like, hey, I was in a temporary office. And I'm like, because they weren't ready to move me in. And I'm like, we haven't received, no, you're not going to pay rent. You can stay there until we finish up your office.
Amazing. That's an amazing testimony. And I can so relate. And I know you and I have shared so many stories, but I'm going to outline the formula of what you just described. It's you have a decision to make in your business. And decision A, I want to invite you to be a guest on Care Sandwich, the podcast where we dive into the success journeys of law firm owners across the country who are successfully incorporating extraordinary customer service and care in thriving practices. We want you to share your story with our audience. As a thank you, you're going to receive media that you can use to showcase your feature on our podcast on your website, and you'll also get several snippets that you can post as reels on your social media. So basically, free content. You don't need any special equipment to join us. You can even record in the comfort of your own home or office. Simply fill out the form, pick a date and time that works for you, and we'll send you instructions to join us in our virtual studio. Maybe on the outside, the most favorable decision.
Right.
But if it's not aligned with your principles, with what you understand God's character to be, then you make the hard choice.
Right.
Of sometimes taking option B, which may not feel as safe, right, as favorable, as easy. But what I'm hearing is, the moral of your story is that it always comes back around, and sometimes you end up ahead. And I've lived so many instances like that, but so that's the formula for those of you that are listening that she just described.
Yeah.
You know, and when it comes to the marketing piece with your audience, I do want to expand and reiterate, you do mention God, the Bible, your principles in your marketing. And I think that's so beautiful. I don't necessarily do that with my business, and it's not for any particular reason, but I think that with your business, you have the choice for the law firm space, I'm going to say, right? If you're a law firm owner and you're listening to this and you're like, well, I can relate to the values, but I don't know how to incorporate it into my marketing. I want to talk about that a little bit more, because I think in the legal space, there is a great opportunity to niche down.
Yes.
By something so specific as even your faith, if that's your faith, right? Or if your faith is something else, right?
Yeah.
There is an opportunity, because in the legal space, especially with immigration, there's a huge pool. So there's enough numbers that if you niche down, you're not going to be excluding people.
Right.
And the other thing that I've observed, and you tell me if I'm spot on or not, when you're so committed in your values, other people of other religions still find that endearing.
Oh, yes.
Still find, like, expand on that.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, for example, we do Bible studies in my law firm. We're an all-female law firm. I mean, you walk into my office, I have a prayer room in my office. Like, it's very apparent, but we don't judge. You know, some people be like, do you represent these kind of individuals? And I'm like, Jesus would. Right?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus is going to love on people. So I think, and people feel comfortable. Like, I don't impose this on none of my staff. My staff, they don't, that's their own thing. They can be their own faith. But it's just understanding and being so grounded in your faith that you can have enough space and expansion to take other people in and not be afraid that, one, you're going to be misjudged, or two, that now you're going to convert, right? Or we're not here to, I mean, I'm not trying to convert people, but it's just walking out your faith. And I think people appreciate when you're transparent and when you're honest and you're sort of walking out your life, and that they're able to see that this is who she is even behind closed doors.
Right.
And, you know, and also when we talk about the marketing, it's not something like I plan out, right? I'd be like, well, I'm going to mention Jesus. And, you know, it kind of like, it comes
it's
really
Resurrection
natural.
Sunday.
Right.
Like,
like, it just, I just made a decision. And
Right.
it wasn't simple, Margarita, because there was that fear of like, well, you know, it's just like when you go to a church that you don't like the pastor, you have a negative experience. The first thing people do is like they stop going to church. And now Jesus is punished, not the pastor, right? And now you're punishing yourself because you're not benefiting from the, you know, the fruit of the spirits, from being blessed, from having Jesus in your life. Continue to say, I'm going to stop going to that church. So I had that in the beginning. I was like, well, you know, I'm human. I make mistakes because I am, and I'm not perfect. And I'm like, but what if I come off like this Jesus girl on social media, and then I make a mistake?
what if it's off-putting?
Right, and the client is like, well, she's not returning my phone calls. You know, I've called 5 times. Or it's like, and she says she's a Jesus girl, and she says she's, you know, I was like, I'm going to be letting God down. And then I was like, you know what? That is not a reason, because there's people out there that I know my true self. So I had to come into that space and say, God knows my heart. I know that I'm doing this genuinely, and there's always going to be people that are going to misinterpret that.
And throw it in your face and use it against you.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that what you just described, I'm going to say, is the right way to do it. And I would even say, outside of the Christian theme, right? You can niche down and be authentic to who you're talking to, and be authentically passionate. And that's why it works.
Right.
So if you're listening and maybe you can't relate to the faith-based piece, this still applies as a marketing principle. I was talking to a law firm owner a couple hours ago, and he said, I'm a business attorney, but I am more passionate about just business, growing business. And he started talking, and like,
he was happy.
His body, and he's like, and that's the content that people like. I don't want to make any more videos about 3 things you should look for in a contract. And I was like, you know why it works? And he's like, why? And I'm like, because, pause for a minute. Did you notice the shift in your body language?
And you do that, you do that to me a lot.
Yes. And he's like, you're right. And I'm like, that's why it works. It's not that it's not that this content is better than this content.
Right.
It's that this content is better for you because it's you. It's in your DNA. You get excited about it. And people are attracted to content that is magnetic. And that magnetism comes from you opening up your mind, your heart to your audience.
And one of the things that you teach us in the marketing is just to be yourself and to be in that comfortable space. Because I think a lot of people get caught up in trying to mimic what everybody else is doing. And I know that you're a big fan of just being genuine, because you go after like, but what works for you? And like, what's your comfort zone? Because when you try to model like how everybody else is doing it's going to be like going uphill. I've tried it, trust me, you know, and I think this is another piece that we can relate to the faith, where I can take a lot of shortcuts and probably be further along in my business than I am today, but I choose not to do that. And that's another thing that, you know, you have to be mindful and say, do I want the quick route and then have problems with Jesus because it's always going to come back? Or do you want to take the long route and make sure you're doing it with integrity and you're running a good race and you have endurance? And when you get to that point in your business, that's when you're going to flourish, because it's no longer up to you. It's up to the guy up there, and you're just going to go and do and be obedient. And I think one of the things you taught me, especially in our last meeting, is just be a woman of action. Because you are like that. Like you are, okay, what needs to be done, and you take action. And I think I'm speaking to my female friends, we lack that ability to just take action. And we get confused and we stop doing this and doing that. And, you know, we can get in our feelings, but you are, I know this is like a totally different topic, but you're very good. If any of your clients are listening, that you're like, okay, where are we going? What's the vision? What's the goal? And let's get the emotions out. Just do what makes it right. And let's keep going, because marketing is about just being your best self.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I could talk to you forever, as you know,
course.
and I do. I take up a lot of your time. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your space. But just to kind of, you know, wrap this up, what are some just things that you would like to share with the audience who's listening and has a law firm and is trying to wrap their mind around everything that we talked about, like just takeaways? And it's good practice for your podcast that you have coming up about the 3 takeaways at the end.
That was your idea.
Yes.
You know, for those of you that can relate to the Bible, I'm going to use this. So, you know, everybody loves David, King David. You know, this is the guy they say he was after Jesus' heart. Love David. And, you know, he's the guy that fought, you know, Goliath, and you know, that's what he's known for. And if you go into the Bible, King Saul, who was the king at that time, sort of wanted to give him his armor. It's like, here. But David, he was like a tiny guy. And, you know, he puts on the armor. It was too big, right? And he's like, no. And I heard God so clear say to me, this is why when you see other law firms and they're just giving, you know, you see this fake reality, driving the big cars, they have 1,000 staffs, and, you know, like, and it's like, and then you think they have this magic, this formula that only if you can speak to them, only if you can sit at that table, they're gonna give you their formula. And guess what? Many of them will sell you their formula. But what I realize is you cannot put on somebody else's armor when you're not fit for that.
That's deep.
You have to go in there equipped with what God has already placed in you. We were born on purpose for a purpose. We have everything inside of us. Yes, we need people like Margarita, because that's her lane. And she has gifts that I need in my life, so I could, and I call her all the time, so I can go do what God has called me to do, because I'm not a master of everything. But just understand that just because something worked for this other person, that armor doesn't belong to you. Like, sit and walk in your lane, in what the armor that God has given you, whatever that is. And it's gonna take time. But when it does come around, trust me, it's gonna feel good, and nothing happens overnight. All the success that you see here, I've been practicing for 20 years. It takes time. So just have faith and patience.
But some of the stuff does happen overnight. I'm gonna argue with you a little bit there.
There are some people that it does, yeah.
But
I agree.
But the heart of what I think you were saying, because I know you, is the shortcuts aren't worth it. And it's better to be patient. If it does require more time, give it more time. But I do think, and the story that you shared with us about the move.
Yes.
That happened overnight, right?
Yes.
So there are things that happen quickly. And Noemi, I have to ask you one more question, because my podcast is called The Care Sandwich. Okay. So what is your favorite sandwich? So just kind of like wrap it up. Everybody's always thrown off by that question. They're like, why are we talking about sandwiches?
I want to say, I don't know, it's the Italian BLT, is it?
Oh, I like it.
I love salami, and I am from the Bronx, and we just had a lot of those Italian BLT growing up.
That's exciting.
Yep.
I love it. I love the same kind of sandwiches too. Mine is the Vito from from Jimmy John's, and it's got salami and all that stuff.
Okay, you see, different stuff for different folks.
Noemi, how can people get a hold of you if they want to hire you as an attorney, refer cases to you? Give us your contact info.
Well, you can call me in the office, 404-902-6004, or you can just find me on social media, Puntier Law.
Really great videos. You'll learn about the law, you'll learn about Jesus, sometimes exercise, and all sorts of other fun things that he does.
Yes. Learn from the best.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Remember, you can find Noemi online on your favorite social media, and we'll see you on the next episode of Care Sandwich.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Care Sandwich. Remember, The way we care for our clients, our teams, and ourselves can make all the difference in our success. Until next time, keep caring, keep growing, and I'll see you on the next episode of Care Sandwich.